All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks for taking the time to hop on today. We'll go like 30, 45 minutes, so not a full hour. This is a little more sedentary, right, than the other technical and tactical sessions. So you're not up and moving around. So please feel free if you need a fidget item or to stand up in your room or whatever to do so as we do this. I know many of you have been doing schoolwork all day, so we'll try to make the most of your time. Today's special topic session is on building confidence. And really, it's just a chance for us to talk about what is confidence, right? How have you experienced it before or a lack thereof? And then talk about some strategies that you can use to continue to build that skill of having confidence. All right. So you're going to need a pen or pencil, so something to write with, and then a pad of paper or a notebook or something to take some notes as well. And I'm going to ask you to use the chat function. So can you give me a thumbs up or something if you all know how to do that? And if you don't, just let me know. All right, we got some thumbs up here. Lexi, Brooke, Jasmine, Avery. How about you guys? You can also just say yes too. And there's someone who has a picture, but there's no name. We have a mystery human. Okay. All right, awesome. You're all in the chat, so you're quicker than I am. Perfect. Okay, so we'll get started. So the first thing that we want to talk about is, what is confidence? How would you define it? So off the top of your head in the chat, what is confidence to you? And there's no need to Google it or anything or go looking for a perfect definition, but just what comes to mind when you think about the word confidence? Awesome. Being able to make choices without doubting yourself, being sure of yourself. Any others out there? Let's get one more, at least. Here we go. Feeling good about yourself and your decisions, self-assurance. Awesome. All great responses. Okay, so two other definitions that are out there are self-trust, which many of you spoke to in your responses, right? Self-assurance, being sure of yourself, and a belief in one's powers, right? So your own self-belief, okay? So I think we're all on the same page here as we jump into this. So the next thing we want to do is just get a sense of our own experiences with confidence. So here's where your notebook's going to come in handy. Think about a time where you were really confident, and it can be a soccer time or it can be a non-soccer time. So just get that moment in your head. And then can you jot down, what did it feel like? What did it feel like in that moment to be really confident? And then this number two, the second part is, what factors do you think led you to feel that way? All right, so maybe it's related to where you were or what you did before that moment happened, or who were you with, but what led you, do you think, to feel that confident? All right. Do we have anyone brave who's willing to share their example? You can just turn your mic on and give us a quick synopsis of your moment.
You know what? I'll give it a shot.
All right. I love it. Go for it.
Okay, so it felt like I could do anything I put my mind to. Like if I put the effort in, it would get done.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I think what led to me being confident was believing in myself and my abilities for like what I could do.
Yeah. Really cool. Thank you, Evan. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else willing to share their moment? Can we get one more brave volunteer?
I can go.
Yeah. Go for it.
It felt kind of made up because a factor of that was I didn't really care what other people thought, and I didn't really care what happened. I just knew that I could do it.
Yeah. Super cool. Right. So, not really focused on anyone else or anything else, just on you and what you could do. Right. Really awesome. Okay. Thank you both for sharing. So I'm going to ask another question, and hopefully we can get two different volunteers to help us out. All right. So the second question is a little bit of the opposite. So think about a moment when you had some self doubt, right? So you weren't very confident. And how did that feel? And what might have contributed to that feeling? And if someone's ready, feel free to just speak up and share briefly your moment. And I know this one's hard and a little bit risky, so any contribution would be really appreciated.
Um, I felt kind of like unsure of myself and I would like second guess everything that I did. And I feel like part of like what was contributing to it is I would like compare myself to the other people like around me.
Yeah, awesome. Who is that? I can't see your name.
Claire Weeks.
Claire, thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, so your focus on the external, right? Other things, what other people thought, not so sure in your decision making. Cool. Anyone else have another example they'd be willing to share?
I just felt really insecure when I was unconfident.
Yeah, insecure. Awesome. Okay, not awesome to be insecure, but another feeling that I'm sure we've all felt before, right? Okay, great. So I think we've all had some personal experiences in being in situations where we're really confident, right? And I just wanted to highlight some of those feelings that happen when we're in that place and some of the things that are going on, right? Lexi talked about not caring about anything else or anyone else, right? Really just being focused on her. On the flip side, when some of us weren't as confident, we were maybe more focused on the outside, right? What was going on, if we made the right or wrong decision, not trusting ourselves the right way. Okay, so now that we have a good starting point, and this is sort of preaching to the choir here, right? Why is confidence important? Well, it impacts how we think about ourselves and a particular situation. Okay. And I think what's really important for us to remember as we walk through today, and then you go out into your soccer lives and other lives, is what we think about tends to be what we're focused on. And when we're focused on something in particular, that's going to impact our behavior and what we do. So if we put that in the context of soccer, right, what we're thinking about is going to impact in the game where our focus lies. And in turn, that's going to impact your performance, right? And what you do or don't do when you're on the field. Okay. All right. So there's a few myths out there about confidence, what it is, what it isn't, right? How it comes into the world. So I just want to put these out there because I think they're important. There's 5 confidence myths that are on the screen. Has anyone heard of any of these before or thought about any of these before?
Yeah.
Yeah, which one, Evan?
The only positive feedback builds confidence.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one, right? So there's an idea that You're only going to be confident if you're only getting positive feedback, right? But you all know as elite players that receiving constructive feedback is important, right? If I told Lexi all the time that she was doing a great job and she just passed the ball away 20 times and she knew she wasn't doing a great job, right? Then that probably isn't going to build confidence in her, even though it was positive feedback, right? So positive feedback isn't the only way or the primary way of building confidence necessarily. Thanks, Evan. Anyone else heard of any of these? How about this first one? I think this one is interesting because, and we're going to talk about this later, there's probably people in our life who are like, they're super confident. I wonder how they got that way, right? They just are, right? So either you got it or you don't. But confidence, we're going to talk about as a skill, right? So it's something that anyone can have. And maybe some lean more towards it than others to begin with, just like maybe some of us learn our technical skills in different ways. But it's not something you're born with and you either have it or you don't. The third one is success always equals confidence. So there's a lot of successful people in the world. And by success, I mean they might be at the top of their class, or they might be a world-class player, or they might be the CEO of a company. Just because they have success in that way, it doesn't mean that they're confident. All right. So anyone have heard of a player called Mia Hamm? You can throw up a thumbs up or a high.
Yes.
Oh, someone said yes. Yep. Cool. She was a really elite women's soccer player in our country. I would probably say she wasn't very confident, but she was super successful in the game, right? So they don't always come hand in hand. Another one is that if you're confident, you must be arrogant. Do you guys know what arrogant means?
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of things what kind of words would you use to describe someone who's arrogant, or what kind of things do they do?
Like reckless.
Yeah, they might be a little risky, a little reckless. They kind of walk around with their chest puffed out, right? Saying I'm good at everything, or yeah, here, look at me, right? So just because you're confident, it doesn't mean you have to be super extroverted and to show it off, right? There's a lot of really confident people who are also quiet and like to listen, and maybe aren't very loud, but they're really good at trusting themselves, right? Okay, and the last one is that mistakes always equal a decrease in confidence. How many of you have felt like your mistakes decrease your confidence before? Because I know I'm one of them. Anybody else?
I have.
You have? Any others? And maybe not, which is awesome. Okay, but a lot of times it's easy to feel like, oh, if I make a mistake, right? That mistake might happen again. Okay, it doesn't have to be like that, right? And especially in soccer, where when you go out and play a game, you're going to make mistakes all the time, right? Soccer is a game of taking risks and making mistakes. So we want to make sure we can start to disconnect the mistakes from your own level of confidence. All right. So none of these are true. Okay. And we want to think beyond those. And we want to start thinking about confidence as a skill that we can develop. All right. And just like any skill, just like your technical skills, your finishing, your dribbling, you have to work at it in order to keep it or to get better at it. And so what we're going to do with the rest of today is we're going to talk about 4 different strategies that you can try out to see if they help improve your confidence. All right. Okay. So we're going to dive in. Okay. The first confidence strategy is act as if. And I like to think of the phrase, try it till you buy it. Others kind of say fake it till you make it, but I don't like the word fake it. So try it till you buy it. So what we're going to do is we're going to think of someone in our life who we think has a lot of confidence. And so I'm going to give you an example for me to start to help get us kick-started. So this human on the screen is my younger sister, Emma. And do you think she looks pretty confident in this photo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. What leads you to think she's confident?
She kind of looks like she is able to be herself with not having other people care what she looks like or acts like.
Yeah, she's like genuinely being her, right? What else? Any other things you notice?
Her smile is super big and like she looks really happy to be where she's at.
Yeah, she's happy, right? She's showing it. Anything else? How about her body shape? She's sort of in like a comic book superhero pose, right? But she's really open, right? She's not closed up. She's like open to the world and just being her, right? Um, so I picked this picture because it really, to me, shows Emma, but I know her personally as well, and um, I, for many different reasons, Emma to me exudes confidence, right? What Evan said, right? She is very comfortable being her in many situations. Uh, she's happy. She shows her emotions and willing to be vulnerable. She's often the person who's really quiet and listens first. And then when people ask for her advice, she shares it and she's genuine and honest. And so all those things to me uh, are characteristics of someone who I would call confident. So I want to ask you, think of someone in your own life who you would say is a model of confidence. It could be a relative, it could be a friend, it could be someone you know in your community. And then I want you to write down a few things you would use to describe them. So we named a few things already, and it's okay if you use some of those, but can you name some other mannerisms or ways they communicate or something about their presence that to you says, hey, this person is really confident? Now, as you think of some of those descriptors, I'd invite everyone just to share one of them in the chat. So, what's one of the things you wrote down? Tone, great. So, the tone they use when they speak. Unbothered, awesome, right? Just focused internally. Open. What else do we got? Jocelyn, what do you got? Brooke, Avery, I want to hear your ideas too. Outgoing, expressive, yeah. Jasmine, Emma, a leader, right? Can talk to anyone. Great, awesome list. So here's my challenge to you, just to make a note of it in your book under this strategy. Act as if. On your own, okay, write down, just circle one of those descriptors you wrote or one that popped up in the chat that to you is a descriptor of confidence, and I want you to try it this week. So maybe let me look at the list here. Tone. So tone might be one that I would choose because maybe I'm teaching a class and there might be an opinion that I'm not super into, and I might use a certain tone that really shows that I actually disagree. Now, it's not wrong that I disagree, but maybe I'm trying to invite everyone to share and be open and honest. So I want to be really aware of the tone and not think that a student is challenging me and my thoughts, but invite them in to share their perspective, right? So I might choose Evan's tone and really focus on that in a class that I'm teaching this week. Does that give you a good example? Thumbs up, down, in the middle. I don't even know if there's a middle thumbs up in the Zoom. Jasmine's a thumbs up. Awesome. Anybody else? Good, Lexi? Okay, cool. All right, let's move on. All right, the next one is, there's a scenario here for us. Okay, so here's the scenario. You are in a game against your rival. In the first half, there was a handball in the box and your team was awarded a penalty kick. You took the penalty kick and hit the ball over the goal. There's now 10 minutes left in the game and the score is 0-0. And there's a forward on your team who gets pulled down in the box and the ref blows the whistle. Your coach yells your name to tell you to step up and take the penalty a second time. All right. What's the first thought that comes to your mind?
Do you want us to like say it?
Sure.
My first thought would probably be like, what happened already happened. I can do this. Like, this is a different time.
Yeah, what a great thought. That's awesome. Who else? Anybody have a different thought or similar thought?
I've done this before and like I felt really down on myself and I cried right away. So I was really hard on myself and yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the first thought wasn't super positive like Evan's. Okay. What else? Anybody have another thought or a sentence you can hear in your head?
I would probably be nervous.
Nervous?
I would be like, happened to me and I said, I can't do this again.
I can't do this again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone else was going to share?
This actually happened to me last season, and my first thought that I go, my team's going to be so mad at me.
My team's going to be so mad at me. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Like, those are real thoughts, right? And things that happen. And it would be amazing if everyone's first thought was like Evan's, right? And that's something we're going to talk about here. So the second strategy.
Can I share?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So as a goalkeeper, if I were to like miss the shot that was taken on me, I'd probably like, my initial reaction would be like bummed out, like annoyed at myself. But then I feel like afterwards, my teammates are usually really encouraging, like, oh, it's not your fault, it's really hard. And so then I actually feel more like encouraged and excited to like help out and to do better the rest of the game.
Yeah, awesome. So Malin, I'm so glad you brought that up, and that I'm going to come back to you when we get to strategy 3, because you brought up something that was super important. Okay, so strategy 2 is called reframing your ants. So not the ants you see on the screen eating the cookie, but ants stands for an automatic negative thought. So the thought someone shared, I can't do this again, right? Or my teammates are going to be so mad at me, right? So some of those thoughts that come to mind that really focus on the can't, or feeling like that negative thing that happened is going to get repeated again. Other negative thoughts might be blaming, right? So maybe you blame someone else for something that happened, or you're in a situation and all you can think of is the bad part about that situation, right? So maybe an example of that is you're talking to your family on the Zoom for the holidays, and you're here in Minnesota and they're somewhere in Iowa, and all you can think about is how crappy it is that you can't be together, and it's no fun, and you don't get to play board games, and you don't get to eat your favorite pie that your aunt makes, and so you just focus on the negative things in a situation instead of maybe some of the positives, right? Well, at least I get to see my family, and we get to hang out together and be safe, and we can still play a different type of game even though it's online, right? So one of the strategies is to think about and notice what an ant is, so a negative thought. Try to interrupt it when it happens, and then replace it with something that's more positive. So thinking about that thought that said, oh, I can't do this again, right? I'm going to miss again, and my teammates are going to be so mad at me. So when that happens, can you notice it and say, I just told myself something really negative. Is there something I can tell myself instead? So one example might be Evan, right? Evans was like, yep, I'm ready. I can step up and do this again. Does someone have a different positive thought they might replace the negative one with in that scenario?
You could change the "I can't do this again" to "I could try this again."
Yeah, I could try this again, right? I can give it a shot. Go ahead, Claire.
Your coach kind of like picked you to take the shot for a reason, and like they believe in you, so you should too.
Yeah, right? What
I feel
else?
like it's kind of like a chance to redeem yourself or fix the mistake you made.
Yeah, just because it happened once doesn't mean it means it's going to happen again, right? Doesn't mean it's a pattern. So, like, thinking that the next one can be different, right? And being confident in that possibility. Okay. So, here's my challenge to you in relation to confidence strategy number 2. So, can you find one moment in the next week where you can squash your aunt? So, I know we're not in the field, but maybe it's related to something else. So, maybe your teacher asks you to do an assignment and you say the answer out loud and it's like way off. You just misheard what the teacher said. And now you're like, oh man. And then the teacher the next day asks you to do it again. Can you recognize that moment in your head where you say, uh-oh, here we go again, and change it to maybe what Malin said? Great, I have another opportunity and I get it this time, right? And I'm going to do a little bit better this time around. Okay. Does that make some sense? So notice it is the first piece, interrupt it, and then replace it with something a little different. Okay, it sounds super simple, but it's really hard to do. All right, we're gonna move to the next one. Okay, new scenario for us. Anyone want to read this for us?
I could read it.
Awesome.
Your best friend got injured at practice today. That afternoon, your phone rings. He says the doctor told him he tore his hamstring. He's out for 8 weeks and is going to miss your tournament in Phoenix next month. He's very upset and worried about not getting recruited to play in college.
Thanks, Malin. Okay, here's the question. What would you say to him? You can take a moment to think about it, and then if you're willing, just feel free to share it out loud.
I would probably say like, A, don't worry, like you're gonna get recruited because I bet they've been watching you for a long time. 8 weeks isn't gonna make that much of a difference. You got this.
Awesome. Thanks, Evan. Anybody else?
I would probably say that like it's okay because it could completely be like it could be totally worse than it is, and it could be longer than 8 weeks. Like when I did my hip, I was like, well, I actually want to play, and I didn't want to miss a tournament. And then I kept telling myself like, well, it could be worse and I could be out for a month.
Yeah. Awesome, Lexi. Cool. So really great advice to your best friend from Lexi and Evan. So now I want you to think about, now imagine you were your friend and you had just gone to the doctor and learned that news. And this is a rhetorical question, so just think about it. Would you be telling yourself the exact same thing, at least in the beginning? I would say that a lot of the time the answer is no, right? So the advice that you might give your best friend about a really tough situation might not be the same advice that you think about when it happens to you. Okay. And I would say Evan and Lexi's advice was really great, right? Putting things in perspective, thinking about the long term. Okay. Focusing on the positives of it actually only being a really short time frame as opposed to what it could have been. Okay.
I feel like I'm really lucky because my teammates are really good and we like support each other. So even though sometimes we don't give ourselves good advice or are in our own like really good mental state, I feel like we've worked really hard as a team to recognize those moments and build each other up. And I think we've been working on that a lot.
That's awesome. And Malin, that's fantastic. And I hope all of you are on a team where you feel really similarly. But what happens if you end up in a team or a classroom or a work environment later when you get older where it doesn't feel like that? Should we always have to rely on the people around us to tell us how to think about a situation? It's nice to have for sure, but whose advice is always going to be with you no matter where you are?
Your own advice.
Yeah, your own advice. And you guys just showed that, right? Your own advice, when you think about talking to someone else, is really good, right? So this strategy is to think about talking to yourself and giving advice to yourself in the same way you'd give advice to a friend. Okay. So the challenge to you is this. Think of a scenario where you don't feel very confident. Okay, so it could have been something that happened before. It could be something that maybe is coming up that you're like, ooh, if that happens, like, I'm not really sure. Okay, and write that scenario down. And then I want you to write a note to your friend. So think again, this is your friend is in this situation. What would you say to your friend? Okay, so someone throw a different scenario out there that might be difficult, that you don't feel so confident in. It can be soccer, it can be non-soccer, whatever.
Like a big test.
Yeah, like a big test, right? So your buddy's going to have a big test, really nervous about it, not very confident in how they're going to perform. So you would write down what you would say to them, okay? And then when you're done, I want you to read your letter to your friend, to yourself, okay? And take your own advice back to you in that situation. Right, so that's confidence strategy 3. Are there any questions so far? Are we all feeling pretty good? Good. All right.
Feeling good.
Cool. Okay, we'll move to the last one here. You guys are doing awesome. Okay, the last one is acknowledge your growth. So think of something that was new to you last year. So last year, something that was new. Anybody want to share? And I'm thinking, I have an example. Is anyone getting their driver's permit right now in this group?
I have my permit.
Yeah, you have it? Okay. So last year, were you driving,
Yeah.
Evan?
No. I got mine in July.
Awesome.
July.
Cool. So that would be something that was new to you in the last year, right? Okay, so now I want you to think about how are you doing with that new thing? So how's the driving going, Evan?
Pretty good. I mean, I haven't scratched the car yet.
That's pretty good, right? 1 year in, right? So Evan, in a year or less than a year, you've gone from never getting in the driver's seat and turning a car on and going down your neighborhood and filling up your car at the gas station to now feeling pretty good, right? About driving and about navigating around, right? And avoiding crashes and all those things. So sometimes because all of you are such high achievers, it's easy to lose sight of the progress you've made and the good things you've done. And so you're so focused, all of us are so focused on developing and growing and getting just a little bit better, which is why you're all here today, that sometimes it's easy to bypass like all the steps that have already happened and see the positive change that you've done. And so this strategy is about really taking a second to notice the good things and the progress you've made from A to B. So I bet if you hopped on technical skills with the 9 and 10-year-olds today, you would have seen them doing maybe some pulling the V's and learning to do the scissors and learning to juggle, right? Throwing the ball up and letting it bounce and then hitting it once and catching it. Okay? Do all of you remember when you did that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet we all can. And now think about what it feels like now to pull the V or to take 4 juggles in a row, right? Or to do the scissors. How does it feel for you now, Evan, when you do that? If I said, can you juggle 4 times in a row?
It's very easy.
Yeah, you don't even think about it, right? It's automatic. Okay. So a ton of progress has been made from A to B. So this challenge, right? This strategy and challenge is to think of something that you don't feel super confident about. So maybe it's something you do and you're like, yeah, I can do it, but I'm not really confident about it. So I'll give you an example for me. So one thing that I don't feel super confident about doing is public speaking. So like getting up in front of a crowd on a podium with a microphone and then talking to a bunch of people. Okay. I've done it before, but it's not something I'm really confident doing. So with that situation, I want to think about 2 times where I did some public speaking and I did it pretty well. Okay? So I can think of one time when I went to a conference in Ohio and I was talking about working with a sports program and some of the research we did. And I remember standing up on the podium and giving my talk, right? And I was really nervous, but I remember it went really well. Like I had prepared, and as I started to talk, like I felt more normal, and I felt really good about it after. So like I would write down that experience, and then I'd think of one other experience to write down. And so the point of this is the next time that I go to public speak, I want to pull out those 2 examples and I want to read them to remind myself that I've done it before. And actually, I've done it pretty well, right? So I have a good track record with that thing. Can any of you think of something that applies in your life? There would be another example.
Well, I really struggled with goal kicks because I had a long break from soccer and it took me a long time to build my like power back um, from breaking my finger. And so um, it's a good reminder because sometimes I'll be hard on myself and feel like I haven't gotten as far as I want to. It's a good reminder to just like remember that where I used to be at with that. So
Yeah.
I'll just have to like, sometimes I just need to remind myself and be more patient with
Yeah.
myself.
That's a great example, Malin, right? And so I bet if you can write a couple of those moments down from when you had some really nice goal kicks before, and then as you go into a game or a training session, you can read those to remind yourself. I think that would help. That's one way that could help your confidence in those moments. Okay. Cool. Thanks for sharing. All right. We're at about 40 minutes, so I want to be really respectful of your time. So those are the 4 strategies. So before we head off in our different ways, in the chat, can you just share 2 things that you learned today? So 2 things that were new. Squash ants and believe in your abilities. Love it. Can talk to anyone. Write down reminders of times you were successful and confident. Awesome. How to rearrange your ants. Great. What else do we have out there? An analogy, being confident, daily situations. Give yourself positive advice. Awesome. Hey, remember again, right? This confidence is a skill and it's not always the same in every scenario, right? So we have to constantly work at it. So, as you try these, be kind to yourself, right? Small steps are good things. Okay, so it might not happen all at once, but maybe you try the one confidence descriptor that you picked out from your confidence model. And the first time it feels kind of silly, but maybe you try it 2 or 3 times. And maybe by the third time, it feels really good, right? I think give yourself a little time to try them out. Okay. Second thing is, if you have any questions you still have or things you want to know more about, put that in the chat. And along with that, the last thing is just take a quick glance at your notes for the 4 things, one for each strategy that you wrote down that you can try on your own this week. So you should have one for act as if, picking one descriptor of your confidence model. You should have one for squashing your ants. See if you can recognize one moment when you have a negative thought and replace it with a positive one. You have one best friend advice. So thinking of a scenario where you're less confident and writing to yourself like you would be writing to a friend. And then the last one, right? Picking something you're not as confident with and writing down a couple moments when you did it well so you can remind yourself of those moments. All right, everyone, that's the end of our session today. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and let me know. Okay, have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seven,
What
bye.
was the first one called?